Welcome back. You're watching Young Turks, India's longest-running show on startups and entrepreneurship, and I'm still in conversation with Sanjeev Agarwal and T.N. Hari on their book, which talks about building businesses to last. Sanjeev Agarwal, it's not just about building businesses that last. What is key now to getting businesses to last is the ability to adapt. So building businesses to adapt, that is crucial. You spend a lot of time in the book talking about strategic choices that companies must make, the inflection points and pivots. Given where we find ourselves today in the Indian startup ecosystem, what do you believe should be the playbook?
I think, Shireen, we have seen that the companies that have scaled, they are all very good at mastering pivots and navigating inflection points. And a great example that you and I are aware of is Make My Trip. They were historically an air ticket provider to consumers. And that industry being very concentrated didn't yield very good margin structure. And the adjacency that they found was hotels. And when the hotels clicked, the company got totally re-rated, something that Yatra did at a much later point in time. And now you can see the gulf between Make My Trip and Yatra. So I think one very important trait of these game changers or entrepreneurs is that they find adjacencies very seamlessly. A Big Basket, for example, going from weekly grocery to daily grocery by making many acquisitions is another good example. So these game changers are constantly evaluating what's around them and making those pivots and hitting those inflection points. And I think examples galore. So they're very good at finding new product cycles. Versus a professional CEO who's very good at optimizing the current product cycle. I think that is the distinguishing trait of a founder, that he's all the time looking for the next big thing which is on the horizon, but is still adjacent to what he's doing currently.
And that's a fine balance, isn't it, Hari? Defending the past, but yet focusing on the future, to the point that Sanjeev was making, that the difference between those who will survive and continue to build lasting businesses will be the ability to find new product cycles, new revenue streams. How are you seeing this in the current milieu that we're faced with?
See, I think, the point that you made is spot on, which is that it's important to be able to stay grounded. At the same time, it's important to dream that you can fly. I think when you're flying, you shouldn't forget that I should remain grounded as well. I think it's getting this balance right, which is very critical. If you don't get this balance right, if you're too grounded, you will never try out new things. If you're always flying, trying new things, you will never be grounded, and therefore your journey will break. So I think it's very critical to get these pieces together. There's other important thing, which is that about the product market fit. A product market fit is often talked about, but it's not a one-time, exercise that you do and believe that, you got a perfect product market fit. A product market fit is always being tested. They're changing consumer preferences, changing consumer trends. I think a company needs to be aware of this, be very close to the customer, be aware of these changing consumers, and be willing to reevaluate the product market fit. Because the flattening of growth is a very clear indicator that there is some problem with the product market fit, and the company has to figure out what they need to do, what are the changing consumer trends that they need to be aware of. And what happens is that as companies become bigger and bigger, the founders as well as the senior management teams tend to get a little remote from the field. That's where the action is happening, and from both customers as well as from employees who are close to these customers. So it's important for customers, for the founders to stay very close to the ground, have their finger on the pulse of changing consumer trends, constantly tweak the product market fit to stay relevant is very, very critical.
Yes, staying relevant to the customer is, of course, crucial. Customer centricity is one of the commandments that Sanjeev and T.N. Hari have listed out in their playbook for scale. Sanjeev Agarwal, let's talk about the other C, and that is culture, before I let you go, because that's also imperative. What is it that you believe a living organization, a learning organization needs to ensure founders put in place to have a culture of improvement and excellence?
I think, Loveleen, culture, to my mind, is about living the values. So it all starts with building some shared values or some principles or some beliefs that you care about and creating them along with your core management team. And then making sure that they are grounded in performance management systems, reward systems, recognition systems. So one value can be actually customer centricity that we talked of. And you make sure that all your top managers, their bonuses are tied to customer satisfaction surveys. So I think culture is like Hari says, is an invisible force. It's like an operating system of a computer, which is not visible to you because you only see the applications. But this is something lying underneath. And if you get this right, then the need for supervision comes down very, very significantly because people know how this company operates and you don't have to go to ask your boss when you have to make a difficult decision because culture is a very good
Yes.
guide to making the right choice. I think lived values which are grounded through the organization would be my advice to young entrepreneurs. And I think that is where the wheels come off. There is too much focus on fundraising and growth, and you are leaving behind one very strong foundational element, which is culture. And I think that is where companies like Make My Trip, Big Basket, Live Space, they have built themselves a great place to work at by virtue of embedding a strong culture. Becomes even more relevant because of the number of employees that they are
Yeah.
inducting at a breakneck speed.
Absolutely. That will be crucial as you build an organization with scale. Sanjeev Agarwal, T.N. Hari, it's been an absolute pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on Young Turks. We wish you the very best of luck with this latest venture of yours, this book that the two of you have co-authored. Thanks for sharing your insights with us here on Young Turks. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this special edition. We will take a break. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment.